I died accidentally and found myself as the side character in a CEO romance novel. My wife is trying to force me to divorce so she can be with her true love. Henry's back. You have to divorce me whether you like it or not. Seeing the alimony in the divorce papers, I quickly signed my name and jumped out of my wheelchair. Shall we go handle the divorce paperwork now? My wife was dumbfounded. After dying in an accident, I ended up as the side character in a CEO novel. When I woke up, I found myself in a wheelchair. David, a rich and spoiled trust fund kid, met the leading lady, Clara, at a bar 4 years ago and fell madly in love, forcing her into marriage. Clara came from a poor family. At first, she was very resistant to me. Later, when her father went bankrupt and committed suicide by jumping off a building, she had no choice but to marry me to pay off his debts. After the wedding, she was cold to me and never let me touch her. We argued frequently. Since her true love, Henry, returned, our fights have only gotten worse. A few days ago, she asked me for a divorce, but I refused. We had a huge argument, and I accidentally missed a step and fell down the stairs, breaking my leg. Suddenly, the door opened, and I saw Clara walk in. Her face was as cold as ever as she handed me the divorce papers. David, the person I love is Henry. Now that he's back, you will divorce me whether you want to or not. I opened the divorce papers and was stunned by the alimony amount. I blinked and counted again several times. 8 million. I'd be laughing in my sleep over this. Now in real life, I'm just an ordinary worker. No matter how hard I try, I could never earn that much. I'm about to hit the jackpot. After my parents died in a plane crash, the company was handed over to the original David. But he was a good for nothing. He messed everything up, and the company went bankrupt, squandering all the family money. But Clara, after years of struggle, has become a mega-rich CEO. She's generous too. I agreed to the divorce. Clara seemed incredulous. You really agreed to the divorce? Her shock was understandable. Just a few days ago, when she asked for a divorce, I refused to the end. I even threatened to jump off a building if she forced me again. I suppressed the excitement in my heart and pinched my thigh, putting on a sad face. Yes, I've reflected. If you love someone, set them free. So let's get divorced. Hesitating one more second would be disrespecting the god of wealth. I picked up the pen, signed my name, and jumped out of the wheelchair with excitement. Shall we handle the divorce procedures now? Clara was utterly bewildered. Isn't your leg broken? I looked down, surprised. My leg didn't hurt anymore. I guess good things really do liven up the spirit. Even broken bones can heal fast. It's all good now. Let's go file for the divorce quickly. Clara scrutinized me with her gaze. I coughed lightly. Aren't you busy with deals worth millions every minute? I don't want to waste your time. The sooner we divorce, the sooner I get my money. Clara wanted to speak, but her phone rang. She answered it, speaking sweetly to Henry on the other end. Watching her soft expressions, I shook my head. These past 4 years, David did everything for Clara, but she never showed him any love, nor even a friendly face. David was just a poor fool. Clara hung up and turned to leave. I called her back. Aren't we supposed to handle the paperwork? I have something to do. She left in a hurry. Watching her leave, my heart ached. When will I see that 8 million? I looked around the room. This villa was bought by Clara. David sold off all his properties to pay off debts. He now has nothing. The next morning, as I came downstairs, I saw Clara and Henry walk in hand. Clara's expression turned awkward upon seeing me, and she subconsciously let go of Henry's hand. I kept a straight face. She has time to be sweet with another man, but no time to handle divorce paperwork with me. Henry looked at me with a provocative glare. I ignored him and went to the dining room. After a while, Henry came over, sitting in the chair opposite me. David, I've never seen a shameless man like you, clinging on and refusing to divorce. I rolled my eyes. Didn't Clara tell you I agreed to divorce? Henry obviously didn't believe me. Stop faking it. I'm telling you, don't think you can just live off someone else. The next second, he splashed milk on his face and cried out. Clara rushed over at the sound and glared at me without asking for details. David, what are you doing? I was speechless. She didn't even ask and was already certain I threw the milk at Henry. It wasn't me, he did it himself. David apologized to Henry. Clara cut me off angrily. Crazy. I said I didn't splash him. Henry looked at me with a smug look. He turned to Clara sweetly. I'm all right, Clara, don't be mad. David didn't do it on purpose. Henry's manipulative words only fueled Clara's anger toward me. While wiping Henry's face with a napkin, she yelled at me to leave. If you won't apologize, get out. Leaving is better than staying around and watching them. I grabbed a sandwich and an egg off the table and left swiftly. Judging by the situation, it looks like the divorce and alimony are coming soon. So I toured some local properties, planning to buy one the moment the money arrives. That evening, I went to a bar. Half an hour later, in a private booth, I was enjoying myself with a couple of young, pretty ladies when I felt eyes on me. I opened my eyes. Amy, the rich heiress. She's also Clara's business rival. They had a fallout over a project last year and are around the same age, so they're often compared to each other, which makes neither of them back down. And since I always blindly support Clara, Amy takes a jab at me every time she sees me. Right now, Amy stood there with her arms crossed, ready for the show. What do you think Clara will do if she finds out you're messing around? Before, I'd probably panic. Now, I took my time grabbing a drink and asked her, "Want a drink?" Amy was taken aback. Didn't see this coming from me. "Aren't you scared I'll tell Clara you're messing around in a bar?" "Please, I'm not scared at all. I'm not David who gets all emotional in a relationship. You want to spill, go ahead. If Clara hears I'm at a bar and drags me straight to get a divorce, that'd be even better." Amy laughed mockingly. "You've been dumped by Clara, haven't you?" I glanced at her, man. I wish Clara would dump me sooner. But guess what, she's taking forever. Almost, yup. Amy stared at me, curious. I chuckled a couple of times. "Oh, by the way, I didn't bring money. Could you cover this bill?" I sat down and realized I forgot cash. But I already ordered drinks and the girls, so what's done is done. I was initially planning to have Clara settle the bill later. Now I won't need to. Amy just stared, saying nothing. I explained, "I'm serious, I didn't bring cash. If you could help, I'll treat you to dinner next time. Right now, I'm broke as a joke. Definitely no money on me." Amy watched me for a bit, raised an eyebrow and said, "All right." I grinned and ordered a couple more girls. Not my money, so why worry? Leaving the bar, just as I was debating whether to head back or not, Clara called. "My mom knows about our divorce and isn't doing well. Can you come with me to see her tomorrow?" Clara's dad's suicide left her mom with depression, so Clara's worried the divorce news might upset her. I refused. "We're about to split. Meeting your mom would just be awkward. I'd better not. Clara's mom would probably try to talk us out of it, and I can't have that mess with my plans to strike it rich." Clara paused for a few seconds, then said gently, "My mom has asked me several times to bring you over. Could you do this one thing?" I thought about it and said, "How about you give me that Ferrari in the garage? Then maybe I'll consider it. Since I went broke, I sold all my cars, so getting around has been inconvenient." Clara agreed. Even though Clara's now wealthy, her mom still lives in the old apartment, not the big villa, because she dislikes changes to her lifestyle. When we showed up the next day, it was right around mealtime. Clara's mom whipped up a big meal with all my favorite dishes. She kept piling food on my plate during dinner. "David, you've lost weight. Eat up." I smiled and gave her some food. "Mom, you should eat too." Her face lit up. "David, you'll always be my son-in-law. Those other guys don't mean a thing to me. There's a reason she likes me so much." Before, David tried hard to please Clara and by extension, her mom, visiting often, chatting, helping out like a real son. When Clara's dad left debts, David stepped up to pay them off, proving to Clara's mom he was far more reliable than Henry. Clara just sighed without saying anything. Henry was her college boyfriend. When he moved away for work, they broke up. Clara's mom never liked him, thinking he wasn't a good match, appearance and personality-wise, for a lifelong partner. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Thinking it was a neighbor, Clara got up to answer it. But turns out it was Henry at the door. "Why are you here?" Henry pulled Clara in and pleaded with her mom, "Auntie, Clara and I truly love each other. Please let us be." He glanced at me. "Don't give Clara to someone she doesn't love. She'll never be happy." Clara's mom's mood darkened. "My daughter is married and happy. Don't think you can break them up." Henry insisted, "Auntie, Clara loves me. Only with me will she be happy." Her mom got furious, pointed at him. "You need to go." Clara pulled free from Henry, going to support her mom. "Henry, stop it." Her mom picked up a bowl from the table and smashed it on the ground. Pointing at Henry, she yelled, "Get out. You're not welcome here." Seeing this, Clara quickly led Henry out. I poured Clara's mom some water. "Mom, calm down. Too much stress is bad for someone with depression." After a sip of water, she calmed down and said, "David, Clara's being silly. Don't hold it against her. Clara's now my financial meal ticket. I got no time for grudges." A few minutes later, Clara returned. Her mom, looking serious, said, "If you want to be with Henry, don't call me Mom." Clara, clearly frustrated, didn't dare contradict her, though. I just quietly ate, keeping out of it. After dinner, Clara and I took off. As soon as we got in the car, I said, "We're free now, so let's go get the divorce papers, shall we?" I added, "As for your mom, let's keep this divorce under wraps for now. I can still come by to keep her company if you need. Clara's mom is quite the cook, and I wouldn't mind getting some free meals from time to time." Clara paused while buckling her seatbelt and turned to stare at me. "Ever since you fell off the stairs, you've changed. It's like you're a completely different person." The look on her face made me feel like she thought I had hit my head, not just my leg. Feeling a bit guilty, I rubbed my nose and said, "You always hated how I clung to you. Now I realize it's best for both of us." Staring at her pretty face, I couldn't help but smirk. "Clara, you sure you're not in love with me? Don't want to part ways?" Clara frowned, clearly annoyed. "Stop flattering yourself. There's no way I'd fall for you. Looks like the reverse psychology worked. We're almost at that money." We arrived at the office to get the paperwork done. No sooner had we parked than Clara's phone rang. I glanced at it. It was Henry. Whatever Henry said, Clara got all flustered. She turned, opened the car door, and said quickly, "Henry, don't worry. I'm coming right now." I scowled. Right when it counts, Henry decides to pull some stunt. Doesn't matter who shows up. Nothing's stopping me from getting divorced and becoming richer. I held on to Clara, who was about to get back in the car. "We're already here. Can we just finish the divorce stuff first?" Clara shook my hand off without hesitation. "Henry's been in an accident. He's at the hospital and it's serious. I have to go." I tugged on her arm again. "He's in an accident, but you're not a doctor or nurse, so what good is going now? We can finish the divorce papers first and then you can head over." Clara hesitated. I pressed on, and who knows, maybe showing him those divorce papers will cheer him up, and he'll heal faster. She didn't pull away this time, and we headed inside. There weren't many people, so it was our turn quickly. I signed the papers with a big smile. Clara seemed distracted and only came to when the staff urged her. I figured she was worried about Henry and said, "Don't stress. Henry's not going anywhere. He's the main guy." Clara gazed at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read. After a moment, she picked up the pen and signed. With the divorce papers in hand and money transferred, seeing the amount in my bank account made it impossible to hide my grin. I bet even an AK-47 couldn't wipe it off my face. I felt like setting off fireworks to celebrate. "I guess you're off to the hospital to visit Henry. I'll grab a cab back." Clara suddenly called after me, "David." I looked at her, puzzled. She squinted. "You look pretty happy about this divorce." Huh? I thought she was being odd. She had been pushing for this divorce the whole time, and now she could be with Henry freely. And me? I just got $8 million in alimony. Of course, I'm over the moon. Now the paperwork's all done, so there's no point pretending. I faced Clara and said, "We're divorced now. Let's not drag this out. Wish you and Henry a lifetime of happiness." Then I walked off without checking her reaction. First order of business with newfound wealth? Shopping. I hit the mall, buying whatever caught my fancy without glancing at the price tags. Felt amazing. I ran into Amy on the way out. This mall belongs to her family, if I recall correctly. Seeing me loaded with bags, Amy teased, "Off to be a simp again." David used to shop for Clara here often, so her jab wasn't off mark. "Nope, these are all for me." I fished out the divorce papers from my pocket and showed her. "I'm divorced." Amy seemed surprised but then flashed a knowing smile. "Thought you'd cling to Clara forever." I waved it off. Emotional stuff ain't for me. Clara's strong and aloof, not really my type anyway. Amy regarded me. "Didn't you once say you'd treat me? There's this new place nearby that's really good." I didn't think she'd remember, but recalling what I spent at the bar, I reluctantly agreed. At the restaurant, Amy ordered a ton of food, Australian lobster, truffle steak. My heart ached at the sight, so I snatched the menu away. "That's enough, I'm cutting weight." Amy clearly saw through my pained expression. "Last time, you blew nearly 10 grand at the bar." I chuckled awkwardly. "I'm jobless. Can't compare to a rich girl like you." With me footing the bill, I wasn't letting myself lose out. I devoured the food and drank a fair amount. The next morning, I woke with a jolt. A woman lay beside me, Amy. I tumbled off the bed in shock. Amy sat up, sleepy-eyed. "Why are you on the floor?" I checked my clothes. Everything seemed intact. I sighed in relief. "We didn't do anything stupid last night, right?" Amy glanced at me. "Of course not. You were drunk, so I just brought you over." Relieved, I stood up and looked around. "Is this your place?" "Yep, I bought it recently." Recalling our conversation from last night, she said, "You're house hunting, aren't you? You can stay here if you like." My eyes brightened, and I hesitantly asked, "How much are you charging for rent?" Amy pondered for a bit, then said, "My dad's been pushing me to go on blind dates. I hate it. Pretend to be my boyfriend for a month, and the place is yours rent-free." I fidgeted with my collar and asked, "Hey, since we're just acting, there aren't any extra hidden agendas, right?" Amy tossed a pillow at me and said, "What are you overthinking? Her place looked pretty luxurious. Just playing a little role didn't seem like too much to ask." I couldn't pass up a chance like this, so I agreed. After breakfast, I headed back to Clara's place to pack my stuff. Didn't have much, mainly important documents. As soon as I walked in, though, there was Henry coming downstairs in a bathrobe. He looked totally fine, nowhere near like he'd been in a crash. Henry saw me and took on a master of the house vibe, directing the staff to get me some tea. I just ignored his little games and started heading upstairs. When Clara came down, she seemed surprised to see me, glanced at Henry, and quickly explained, "We ended up talking business late, so Henry crashed here." Sure, I knew Henry worked for her, but why tell me? I didn't care what she did. We're divorced, remember? I'm not interested in who you're with. Clara hadn't expected that. Her face turned sour. I didn't pay her any mind, packed my stuff, and was ready to leave. Clara caught up to me, asking, "Need a ride?" I blinked at her. "Forget already? You gave me the Ferrari from the garage. I got wheels." She looked a bit off, almost like she wasn't herself, but I wasn't about to overthink it and just left. Amy invited me to her granddad's birthday bash 2 nights later. I'd be her boyfriend for the evening. We showed up holding hands, causing quite a stir. I'd been in high society before, but had lost my standing recently. Amy introduced me to her grandfather, said I was her boyfriend. Surprisingly, he didn't look down on me. He seemed pleased, actually. She then took me around to meet her parents and all her relatives. I played my part perfectly. After all, staying in that fancy villa was totally worth it. Once everyone dispersed, I leaned toward Amy and asked, "You're so out there with this. How are you going to explain things in a month?" Especially since her granddad was egging us to get hitched. If my acting wasn't top-notch, I'd have slipped up for sure. Amy just said calmly, "Don't worry about it. We'll deal with it later." Her confidence put me at ease. Worst case, I'd just move out. Clara showed up too, giving Amy's granddad a birthday gift. Business folks love their facades. When Clara saw Amy wrapped around my arm, her sweet smile made Clara's expression go all pensive, as if she was piecing a puzzle. But I had no time to guess her thoughts. Amy's relatives were enough for me to handle. When Amy got called over by her granddad, I found a seat and started eating. Clara's voice suddenly cut in. You and Amy, together? I looked up at her. Yup. Clara's face darkened immediately. David, do you realize she's just using you to get back at me? Before I could respond, Amy snorted as she sat down beside me. Clara, you're so full of yourself. Clara's face remained tense. Amy, don't think I'm blind to your schemes. You won't hurt me this way. I was amused. We were divorced. Who I dated wasn't her business. Clara, you're way overthinking this. Amy and I are happy. It's mutual, not your fantasy. Clara paused, processing my words. Using her first name was my way of distancing myself. David, haven't I given you enough money? Why her? She demanded. I shrugged. Clara, I'm just your ex. Don't worry about me. Clara stormed off, frustrated. Life was good after that, filled with fun, food, and driving the Ferrari around town. Occasionally playing the role of Amy's boyfriend, joining her outings for free meals and fun. It was nice. Nights were for the bar. On one occasion, I stopped outside a private room and saw Henry, cozy with a girl. I wasn't tuned into Clara's life, but given her status, word about her and Henry's marriage spread everywhere. Apparently, they didn't hold a wedding, only registered, thanks to Clara's mom. Henry being with another woman didn't shock me. He likely married Clara for money, and now he'd revealed his true self. I moved on back to my own room. When the night ended, I stepped out of the bar and saw Clara and Henry not far off, mid-argument. Henry pushed Clara aside and took off with the girl in his car. Clara stood there, stunned, until our eyes met. It was hard not to notice, especially seeing her tear-streaked face. Clara was always tough, rarely cried, so this softer side under the moonlight seemed almost pitiful. I felt nothing, gave a casual nod, and was about to leave when Clara called out, David. I turned, What's up? Are you doing okay? She asked, eyes fixed on me. I nodded. Yeah, I'm doing great. Clara studied me. I'm planning to divorce Henry. I stared skeptically. Her divorcing Henry mattered to me. Why, exactly? I wasn't her confidant. Before I could respond, she choked out, I realize now the one I truly love is you, David. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have divorced you. I was taken aback. Don't. You should keep being head over heels for Henry. Clara walked up to me. I know you still love me. Once I'm divorced from Henry, would you consider getting back together with me? I immediately turned her down. No. Wiping her tears, Clara smiled at me. It's okay, David. I know you're mad, but I won't give up. I'll wait for you. On the way home, I kept thinking about Clara's last words. Did she really want to get back together with me? But I was just a fallback. I just wanted to stay far away from her. At home, I found Amy sitting in the living room, having a drink. She waved at me when she saw me. You're back. Come have a drink with me. I went over and sat beside her. I planned to talk about Clara, but seeing her so tipsy, I decided not to. I picked up a bottle and started drinking. The next morning, the doorbell woke me up. I rubbed my eyes and realized Amy was asleep on the couch opposite me. I remembered we got drunk and passed out there. I got up to answer the door. It was Clara standing outside. It wasn't surprising with her skills that she'd figure out where I lived. Clara held up bags with soup dumplings and soy milk, smiling. I remember you love these, so I got some for you. Before I could speak, Amy's sweet voice called out, Who's there? She walked over, hugging my waist, playfully whining, You really wore me out last night. I can't even get up today. The breakfast Clara held dropped to the ground. She staggered back a few steps, wide-eyed. You're living with her? Amy clung to me. You can check. This is my house. Clara looked really upset. I told Amy, go freshen up. I need to talk to her. Amy hesitated, then let go and headed upstairs. Clara's eyes were red. David, is there really no chance for us? Clara, get real. I said earnestly, if Henry hadn't cheated, you wouldn't even think of me. You don't love me. Clara shook her head. No, David, I really do. These 4 years of marriage weren't meaningless. I thought I loved Henry. That's why I turned you down. On the day of the divorce, I hesitated. I realized I can't let go of you. You're in my heart. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It was good we divorced back then. Seeing I couldn't convince her, I said, Clara, I can't always revolve around you. You saw earlier, Amy and I are happy together. Clara bit her lip, on the verge of tears. The old David would have been quick to comfort her. But now I just wanted to get away from her. I closed the door and went upstairs. Amy was applying skincare. I walked over. She huffed. I thought you'd left with her. Looking at her pouty face, it was clear she was mad. But she looked adorably like a little goldfish. Amy. I rarely call her by name like this. She looked at me, a hint of nervousness in her eyes. You aren't going to tell me you want to get back with Clara, right? Her suspicion isn't unjustified. The old me was quite into Clara. Amy put down her skincare, walked up to me. If you still like her, I really can't respect you. Before she could finish, I leaned down and kissed her forehead. Amy froze, blushing, stumbling over her words. What do you mean? I chuckled softly. I knew for a while she had feelings for me. It's hard to hide when you like someone. Amy, I'm officially asking now. Will you be my girlfriend? Amy hesitated, then playfully punched me. You're so annoying. Annoying or not, are you going to think it through first? I hate you. I really do. I acted nonchalant. Well, guess I'll just go find Clara then. I turned and started to walk off. Amy panicked. Come back here. She yanked my ear. If you go, I'll break your legs. I laughed. I wouldn't dare. Amy realized I was joking, hugged me with teary eyes. Do you like me? I wrapped an arm around her waist. I do. Amy can be a bit headstrong, but being with her is relaxing and fun. Totally different from Clara. As for Clara, I heard Henry wouldn't divorce her. He kept spending her money on partying and many women. With no options left, Clara had to file for divorce. Henry ended up leaving with nothing. The day she got her divorce papers, she came to me, sounding all excited. David, I'm divorced. Will you come back to me? I looked at her, and it seemed like she forgot I turned her down last time. Clara, I don't love you anymore. Please don't come looking for me. To be honest, I never loved her. The person who did was David, not me. Just then, Amy walked over, and I took her hand. I'm about to marry Amy. Clara looked like she turned to stone, mumbling, you're going to marry her. I nodded and said, yes, let's part ways peacefully, all right? Don't disturb me anymore. Clara burst into tears instantly. David, I truly regret it, regretting the divorce with you. I didn't answer her, but instead walked past her hand in hand with Amy. After a while, Amy glanced back and saw Clara still standing there. She asked, you tricked her about us getting married. When we don't, she'll come back to bother you. Amy was surprised by Clara's frequent attempts to get back to me. Knowing how proud and haughty Clara is, I stopped in my tracks, looked at Amy's face, who said I was lying. Amy's breath hitched. She licked her lips, her expression a bit uneasy. You're not lying. Then you, before she could finish her sentence, I went down on one knee and pulled out a ring. It was a proposal, plain and simple. Amy, will you marry me? Amy was shocked, covering her mouth. She never expected me to propose. She was touched, with tears in her eyes. I will. I smiled, slipping the ring on her finger, and soon after, started planning the wedding. Amy was always worried I might get too tired and told me the wedding didn't have to be overly grand. Just simple. I ruffled her hair and laughed. But I want to give you the best. On our wedding day, Amy and I were both so happy, and I believe we'll have a wonderful life together. I later heard Clara came to the wedding, but I didn't notice her. A year later, I opened a restaurant and business was booming. Clara would visit frequently, but I ignored her until one day, she saw me with Amy, who was 5 months pregnant. Clara broke down and ran out, crying. Turns out, she was waiting for Amy and me to divorce. Seeing we were having a baby, she knew it was over for us. After that day, she disappeared for good.